Hello and welcome once again to the Power of Stories, the podcast series with Doctors Schuster and Oxley. I am David Oxley. My co-host Helmut Schuster is their center screen. We have this podcast series focused on telling stories, and the fundamental point of these is to share stories that have inspired, helped people overcome adversity or find success in their professional lives. And we're focusing on stories because we think they resonate more and stay longer in the mind, create more stimulation of thought and creativity than simply instructing people. You know, the trouble with many business books, particularly career books, is that they're a list of instructions. You know, this is what you do, number one, number two, number three. And stories are just more entertaining. So whether you come to this podcast just to be entertained by a story, or the sparkling conversation that then ensues as we discuss why that story resonates, this is the right place. This episode, we are joined by Ali Elsabagh. So I'm very happy to greet him. But let me turn over to Helmut Schuster to do the introductions. Helmut,
yeah, David, thank
over to you.
And very much for the context and intro. Just to remind us all, this is our fourth podcast. The first was an intro podcast, David and myself. Then we hosted wonderful Trish Connolly, corporate executive, HR professional, proud mother of adult children, and most importantly, to my opinion, probably one of the most grounded, pragmatic people I've ever met. Then we had Barry Thomas, an artist, musician, podcaster, influencer, and one of the most authentic and creative people I've had the opportunity to work with. And today we are delighted to welcome Ali Elsabagh. I have the honor of introducing you to our audience. Thank you so much. Yeah, David introduced the last two guests, and I'm really excited that Ali agreed to join us today. Ali is the youngest of our guests so far, and probably will hold this record for quite some time. Ali is, I thought he was 23, but yesterday he corrected me and said, no, I'm only 22. I will only turn 23 in August. We met during the COVID disrupted years, as I like to call it. And since then I had the privilege to get to know Ali much better and work with him on the AFS Youth Assembly in New York. We both had the privilege to spend, and that's how we actually met, time abroad with an AFS scholarship. And as we discovered, our experiences were very, very similar, but obviously many, many years apart. I think, Ali, you must have done the program probably 40 years after me. But Ali is originally from Egypt, spent then his senior year in a high school in Midwest America. He, and that's actually quite amazing, got accepted by one of the most innovative and prestigious universities in Europe, and this is Leuven University in Brussels, where he received both his bachelor degree and his master's degree. And that is actually a really amazing thing. And while he did all that, he also co-founded and was the first president of Scaleta, which is a non-profit with the aim to provide professional opportunities to students, mostly international students, if that's correct. And now Ali is working for a very, very well-established and successful startup called Cowboy, which do sell e-bikes across Europe. I think it's one of the biggest providers in Europe, also presented in Britain, David. Ali, you're so young. You've accomplished so much. And this is the thing which I really, really like about you. You're so humble. And what I love most about you is really your always positive attitude. And I think we come to that in our conversation. But now, like all our guests, I ask you to tell your story very briefly, and then we just engage in a very, very open-ended conversation. So over to you, Ali.
Okay, well, thank you, Helmut. Well, thank you a lot for the introduction and for inviting me here with you guys. I'm really excited for it. My first ever podcast, something like that. I wanted to share actually the story about Scaleta, but also like how I ended up being in Belgium. Because for me, the story really represents or like shows the power of connecting people to one another, and also the power of helping people always bring back something good for you. So yeah, going back during COVID times, I decided I want to study abroad. So when I moved to Belgium, it was really like a complete lockdown. Totally different than Egypt. You know, in Egypt we had only like a 10-day lockdown, so I did not really feel COVID until I moved to Europe. And yeah, when I moved to Europe, I barely like knew anyone. Just started to meet some people in my student residence, etc. That's where also I met my co-founder, like for Scaleta, Daniel. And the idea behind Scaleta, we just really thought, you know, as an international living in a different place, you don't know anyone. It was a bit hard to understand where to go, like in opportunity wise, how to get internships, how to grow a network, etc. At this time, there was like some student organization or non-profits, but I was really focused to the Belgian students and more of the local students rather than also like gathering all international students as well. So we decided, okay, that can be a great point where we can also like learn and grow our network, but in the same time help other people that is in our place to have a bigger network, have bigger opportunities, you know, to have just like clear ideas how industries work, different industries function, and what to do in order to reach a certain like career path, let's say. So that's why we started Scaleta. It started really small, a small group of people of like 6, 7. We got them. It was also like we decided when we get the team to be international. So yeah, we started that way. And we first just wanted really to help people get internships and to land people their first internships. And then it started from that to, okay, what about we all really believe in the same mission? Let's actually have a bigger network or like a family type of a relationship, how AFS, you know. In AFS, for instance, me and you, we connected after how many years from the experience, but we both felt it was the same thing. We both felt we really related in the sense of the experience we felt. We wanted to build something like that in Scaleta, so that's how like really like a lot of people who joined believed in the mission of Scaleta, which we all worked towards it. It grew from 2 people to now around 25 people, 30 people. They're all like from more than 14, 15 different countries. The president, for instance, now she's Polish. She was one of the first joiners who took also Scaleta this year to another level in terms of like expanding it to other European non-profit organization, like a big group, helping more students, etc. Yeah, so like this like idea of small thing to just like, okay, I want to know how can I land my first internship and how can I grow my network to make it actually like a lot of people knowing or a lot of people working toward the same mission to basically increase their connections or know each other more to yeah build a bigger network. And now what we're really focusing on it is to how to make sure after let's say 10 years this network or this organization or alumni people of Scaleta stay connected and believe on the mission and help each other regardless their ages, regardless their different career paths, regardless their background. And I believe, you know, this idea of just people connecting to one another always brings something really special. So yeah, I believe it was crazy how something that was really small turned out into this because a lot of people really believed in the mission of it, but also how the power of people connecting to one another from really different backgrounds made it something that is super strong because as you know, it's not like a business where you get paid. It's something that is a non-profit. You volunteer to do it like AFS. So you really need to believe in the mission and you really need to believe in what are you doing and how are you helping other people. So yeah, it's really impressive to understand like how when you really help people, it always comes around because people keep connecting you to other people to end up like, I don't know, having different opportunities, etc. But also just, yeah, believing in something to create, how do you call it, like a group of people, knowing each other, having good relationships, strong network of people. But yeah, I mean, that's the story about Scaleta, I believe. And yeah, it really opened my eyes and yeah, it's always best to connect people to one another. And when you always help people, it always comes around back to you.
Well, Ali, what a great message. Do good. So, thank you very much. I think, David, we need a big applause. So, thank you very much. Now we're gonna be in the free format of the podcast, yeah. And David, do you mind if I ask the first question? Perfectly. Ali, I mean, we actually have become really good friends now because of this one experience in America, Midwest America. And there's one thing, and I really wanted to ask you that. So, and for the audience, basically, I had a conversation with Ali yesterday, and to basically prep a bit for today. And he said, well, I really don't know what to do. And Ali has a full-time job. Ali, you have a full-time job. And you said, I really need to do something on the weekends. Yeah. Now, we live in a time where everyone basically says the next generation, the 20-somethings are lazy and they just basically have no ambition whatsoever. And that's I wanted to have you in the podcast. Yeah. I mean, you're such a force of nature. And I think you're not really... I think I see many people in your circle of friends which are similarly ambitious, focused, hardworking. What do you think? Is there anything true behind like the next generation, the 20-somethings are lazy and not focused, or do you have a slightly different perspective? And how much is it being from Egypt, living in Europe, providing you with a context others might not have? The other thing is really how much is that you came from a country like Egypt, and then being in Europe made a difference for your appreciation of the ability to work and the value of working hard.
Yeah, I believe like the first thing is like you always people sometimes take the place that they are in right now for granted, but when you understand like you're privileged enough that you are in a good, let's say, situation, you have the ability to work in a good country, you have the ability to have good education, all of these things like you should not really take for granted. And when you understand that, you really try to do your best and work hard because you learn that you're privileged, that you ended up being here, you ended up being in a different place, learning a new culture, getting exposed to a really diverse set of friends, people from everywhere. How like Brussels is like so diverse with different people from different countries. So being in such a privilege, I would say it always like you need to learn how to not take it for granted and to work as hard as you can in it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Was it what inspired you to do it, though? I mean, is there something in? Can you point to something in your background, Ali, that you think imbued you with that sense of drive, that sense of purpose? You clearly have an energy, an appetite, an ambition for both adventure. Many people wouldn't go international. Many people certainly wouldn't do so during COVID. And the idea of working at the weekends, as Helmut was saying, is somewhat countercultural to the stereotype of Gen Z. So the questions, I suppose, I'm still intrigued. Can you point to something that is a sort of fire within you, and how did that fire within you originally get ignited?
Yeah, I mean, I think like since I was like a young kid, I really believe that like I don't know, I enjoy going out of my comfort zone, whether it's just trying something new, learning something new, or taking a new challenge. Just like the idea of having this, like leaving your comfort zone and being in a new situation or something to experience new, or even like, to learn a new skill. It's always interesting for me and it excites me. And that's how I decided at the end, to go to the US. And after that, it really fed this idea of like always experiencing something new, always be in a new situation where you get to learn. That's how I ended up being in Belgium. And obviously, like, I feel when you see something that, yeah, there's a problem, there's always this force that you want to try to solve it or try to work on it. So I think the combination of the two, plus like a good friend of mine really gave me this advice or this word that really resembles to me till now, which is like I mean like tomorrow you should be learning something new. In 1 year you should be learning something new. In 5 years you should be learning something new. Even in 20 years you should be always learning something new. So I really believe in this sentence or like this quote of like you need to be always learning something new and this feeling, yeah, of leaving your comfort zone.
Ali, when
Yeah.
you talk, it feels like there's no fun in your life. There's just hard work. There's just focus. Now, knowing you a bit better, I know there's a lot of fun in your life. Yeah.
Yes.
And so, what do you do for fun? Let's actually, what do you do for fun to get the balance right between your private
To
and
be,
your
I
professional
really,
life?
I really love doing a lot of sports. Like, I enjoy going, yeah, do weightlifting, a bit of calisthenics, and I'm getting into like bouldering now and kite surfing. So learning these two things. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy doing all of these outdoor like sports or activities, which is like hiking and stuff. Yeah, yeah, I enjoy these things.
How about skydiving?
Yeah, no, I would love to. I mean, don't know how my girlfriend would react to that, but I'm pretty sure it's in my list to do.
To do okay, cool. Ali,
Yes.
just one thing, and you did read our books, yeah, so I very much thank you for
Yes.
that. Is there any specific takeaway? I know that you liked some parts of the book you liked very much. Anything
Yeah,
you wanna
indeed.
say
I mean,
about that?
I really found the book unique in the sense of like how it was structured into different parts, like the kind of like a fiction part where like you really understand the story of the character and how he went into like yeah the idea of like him being outside of his startup to then like starting to learn again and stuff. So you really get into emotional with the character and then the part two where like you really learn some facts and more of like some advice on how to keep learning and how to stay resilient with like changes and stuff. So the mix between those like fiction and non-fiction, I enjoyed the most.
One of the
Cool.
things, Ali, that we're focused on is obviously career advice, how to provide. In a way, our books aren't for you because it sounds like you've got purpose, you've got energy, you've got an appetite to take on adventure and explore. It sounds like you're not afraid to fail, which is part of the problem when you put yourself out there and try new things, that you get rebuffed, you don't always succeed, and how you how you react to that is a large part of how people then either choose to sort of settle for something that's a bit more predictable and less risky, or continue to throw themselves at the proverbial brick wall. So I'm intrigued to sort of leverage some of that wisdom that you seem to have gathered at a very, very young age, which is what is what advice would you give? What's your observation about? Let me paint a different picture. Someone goes to university, they go from university, they take a graduate job with one of the big banks, they work 14 hours a day with a view to try and establish themselves. They get paid good money, but they're miserable. You know, the statistics that we often repeat is that, you know, the latest Gallup survey says 60% of people are disillusioned by their job, but 20% find it a source of absolute misery. And so I put that to one side, and then I look at you and I listen to you and I see enthusiasm and I see an appetite to try new things and not to settle and see problems and try and solve them. And so how would you what advice would you give? How does one look at life the way you look at it? Is it you just born that way, or is it something that you have developed?
Well, to be honest, I'm not really sure in the sense of like how I ended up like doing that or like how I ended up being that way. It just like I think from young age I just like to always be in challenges, be in not comfortable environment to just be there, like just trying something new. But I think the biggest thing is in work is like as long as you're learning, as long as you're not afraid to take a new challenge, that's the most important thing. I mean, once you feel like you stopped learning, you should know that okay, you should have some change, maybe a different career, or maybe like even like in the same company, just like ask to do new projects or like start your own thing on the side, just to have this idea of like, yeah, you're still learning, you're still trying something new, and like you're just like not in the same situation where you are in.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I mean, there might be people listening to this, for example. 2025 is a tough environment for some people. There are people being laid off. There are people that perhaps graduating university looking for their first job. And we talk also about this sort of work experience paradox where everyone wants work experience as a prerequisite for your first job. But, you know, by definition, if it's your first job, how can you prove you have work experience? And then I listen to you and I hear this notion of it sounds easy to in the way that you talk about it to go, well, start something new and start a new job, and if you're not learning something, do something else. And I think to a lot of people that feels very daunting. It feels like it's well, how would you do that? You know, if someone comes and calls you after this podcast and says, so Ali, what, you know, how do you do that? How do you do something in parallel? I've got a mortgage to pay. I've got a salary that I need in order to pay my bills. So how do I change career? How do I get into artificial intelligence when I'm currently, I don't know, in an industry that's being displaced by new technology? Do you think that's, to you, is that a sort of simple equation, or is does it require a certain amount of courage?
No, I mean, like, of course, it requires courage because, like, it's not easy. I think also it's like a bit discomforting, you know, like if, like, yeah, you say like I want to change like a career path or like something like that, just trying something completely new that you're not familiar with. But I believe, you know, like in the sense of like when you put always the work, it always pays off. So when you put the work to learn something new, it will pay off eventually. When you put the work in, like, let's say applying to jobs or trying to get into something, at the end it will pay off. I think the amount of work you just need to put and then believe that like the good thing will happen for a reason, or like what's gonna happen for you, it will be the best for you basically. But yeah, of course, it's discomforting to just like do something completely new that you're not aware of, you're not familiar with. But at the end, somehow, when you put the work, it works eventually, you know. Not all the time it's gonna end up working, you know, like easy. But at the end, I believe it works once you put enough work into it.
I mean, Ali, when I talk to you, when I meet you, as I said, you're always positive, yeah? I mean, your whole life seems like great CV. Everything is easier. Everything seems so easy in Allah's life, yeah? He's lucky or whatever. But reality is, and it's not easy, yeah? I mean, do you want to talk a bit about, because what I really, really admire in you is actually your ability to not accept a no for an answer. I mean, just that you're still in Belgium is a miracle in many ways, yeah? That you're allowed and legally in Belgium to work there is a miracle, and I've seen you going through all the emotions of being able to be in Brussels. Do you want to talk a bit about that? Yeah, because
Yeah,
that's one of
yeah.
the key things. Don't take no for an answer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like after finishing university, because like you know, I'm not European, so you really need the visa to end up like staying in the country. So just like yeah, it was a bit of like a rough period of like just applying to, let's say, hundreds of jobs and just getting automatic rejections and stuff. So it's not always easy, you know. It's always, you know, a bit also, how do you call it, discouraging. But as you said, where you like take failure and, or like not failure, but when you take no or rejections and then how you move on or move forward after that, I think it's something that is key thing. So yeah, it was a really annoying period of just, you know, like getting the same responses over and over again. But then it's like, yeah, you keep, yeah, I think just trying, you know, not really stopping, and eventually you get what you want. But yeah, indeed, it's just like you need to understand that. it will happen eventually, even though if it does not look like it at the moment, even though if it looks a bit hard or tough, let's say, eventually it will work out. You just like need to keep really working towards it or like pushing your way through.
Okay, David, any?
Well, I think it's maybe we just turn the conversation a little bit now to reflect on Ala's journey and Ala's story, and use that as a means by which to sort of start bringing the podcast a little bit to a conclusion. So I think as I reflect on Ala's story about this pursuit of solving problems, spirit of adventure, this idea that a lot of us get tunnel vision about careers, that we say, partly because of how we're brought up. Our parents are saying, go and get a good job, and go and get well paid and get a job that's got a good pension, and these are sort of set in the past. And I look at Ala's example as it's the new frontier of careers. It's this idea that you are capable of doing multiple things. In a way, it's multiple jobs or multiple professional, it's a mosaic in a way, right? Multiple professional pieces that come together to create a career. Starting this networking around his experience in Europe and Brussels, in addition to the idea of entrepreneurship as an alternative to traditional career professional paths and vocations. And as we've written about, Helmut, this idea that people are stuck in this sort of backward-looking view of what careers are, that a career is a job interview with a big company that's then going to give you a career ladder for the next 20 or 30 years, is slowly disappearing. I mean, it's perhaps not disappearing overnight, but it's slowly disappearing. And I see Ali as an example of someone who sits in the new space. He occupies the sort of future of what careers will become. It'll be interesting to check back in with him 10 years to now and see what his experience is, whether he's, unlike many of us who did in the first 10 years maybe just one job. I would guess that Ali may have had 20 different things that he's been involved with. And I find that fascinating because it's in such stark contrast to many of the people we talk to who are 20, 30 years into their career and find themselves in a situation where their job might be made redundant, and they're looking essentially for a very similar job at another company. And so that, for me, is just I find the contrast between the two almost jarring. It's so different. So what are your reflections, Helmut?
Well, that's just basically, Ali, very much. I really appreciate having you. I mean, for me, three things I took away. Never take anything for granted. That's you. Never give up. Yeah, just never give up. Yeah, there's always another way. The problems, every problem has a solution, and you're actually in many ways really pragmatic. Yeah, but the key thing is actually always, and this is never stop learning, never stop learning. But what I would like you to basically, Ali, and by the way, I think, David, that's probably the last time that Ali will be in our podcast, because in 10 years he's either the next Steve Jobs or president of Egypt, or basically general secretary of the United Nations. So it is a real privilege. But what is just one, yeah, Ali? What is the one?
We should extract his promise now to return. So
we should actually, yes.
Yeah, we should.
That's a good idea.
That would be great.
Yeah. So what is your one tip? What is your one advice you would give to your generation of people? Of what is your one advice? If you had to just give one advice.
Yeah, to be honest, I would say never be afraid to just reach out to people, to connect with them, to learn from them, to just get to know them, and also to connect people to one another, because it's really surprising, but it does really make a lot of difference, and then you see it is really coming back to you in any sort of a way, and it's always interesting to see the power of connecting people to one another. So I believe always try to get to know people, and helping people if you can.
So, Ali, how would people contact you? How would they learn more about you if they've watched this podcast and they say, "Oh, I'd like to know more about Ali"? And he's obviously inviting us to network and contact him. That's what he's just said. Yeah. So, how would they go about doing that?
I mean, they can always reach me in any way, like on my email, on my LinkedIn. I mean, just reach out to you guys. They can take my number as well. I'll be more than happy to get to know someone new and learn from them.
On that high, if not controversial note, we'll bring some the aspects of this particular episode to a close. So, Ali, thank you so much for appearing on this episode of The Power of Stories. It's been enlightening, and it's really been fascinating to talk to someone who is so much the antithesis of what people often label Gen Z to be. So I thank you very much for flying the flag for all that is good and wonderful and potentially emphasize the possibilities of what Gen Z will give to the world. So thank you once again for that. We, with these podcast series, will continue to try and focus on the telling of stories. Helmut, is there something else that you would like to add before we wrap?
No, I just want to say a big thank you, and can you stay online afterwards, please?
Yes, we will absolutely do a quick debrief. So for those of you who have enjoyed this episode of The Power of Stories, another will follow in a couple of weeks. We're trying to do them now twice a month. We will have a mystery guest appear on the next one. Each of these stories and podcasts are linked to our broader mission to try and provide great, interesting, entertaining, relevant career and professional advice for a new audience. We're doing that not only with these podcasts, but also with our other media interests, including the series of books that we have written. So if you've enjoyed this, please go ahead and check out all of our content on the various channels, including LinkedIn, our website, and Instagram. But with that, let me bring this to a close. Once again, Ali, thank you. And it is goodbye from me and...
Goodbye from Helmut, and thank you again, Ali.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here.